mission statement. We were just sort of forming, and it was to raise healthy food on working lands in a way that sustains the planet and inspires others to action. The only change that's happened in 12 years on the mission statement is sustains became regenerative. These guys will tell you more about why as you get into the visit here and start to look at the land. But the long story short was, when we started thinking about the historical uses of this land, since the Portuguese settlers came here, not going back into indigenous times, but sort of since the Portuguese settlers and the dairy industry was big in this area, the landscape was really heavily used in what we would call a more extractive mindset. You know, plant the harvest, take away, give it to another farm. And there were stories that people sold the topsoil off the ranch. There were stories that people sold, could pay to dump their car in the creek. Anyway, we didn't want to sustain that. Regenerative became our word choice, and as we've been out in the world, we do a lot of hosting people here. We do a lot of speaking at events around the country, and we've continued to sort of be one of the advocates pushing regenerative agriculture out into the world. And so it was sort of that early switch in our mindset that now has been the longer term story of the mission statement, but also a little bit of the history of this ranch. TomKat bought it in 2002 for somebody who asked about the history of it, and it had been owned by a count and countess for 40 years before that, go figure. They had a whole bunch of people who were not caring a lot about the land. There were just many people trying to make a living off of this property, but a property is only sustainable, this place is only sustainable or regenerative when it's actually in balance with the ecosystem here, and it was not in balance. So that became our journey then to sort of set that balance. I came in to launch the Educational Foundation. I was at Stanford at the Institute for the Environment before that, and I was at the Nature Conservancy for a long time before that. So my background's been in conservation. I grew up in a small dairy town in upstate New York. So on and on. We're all happy to talk about our journeys, but since you all are in that phase where probably some people have their careers figured out, some people maybe are thinking about it, just know we're all happy to talk about our journeys. And I don't know if any of us would say that was a very straight line. So that's my intro.
I'm Mark. I'm the ranch manager. I've been here since 2017. Yeah, I'll start where you ended. Just quick on journey. So I've been in agriculture all my life. I grew up on a grass-based dairy, which I joke that we were so backwards we were ahead of the curve. No barns, cows only went in twice a day, got milk. They were on grass the rest of the time, on hay in the wintertime. But I have gone the whole roundabout of growing up on that to working in corporate ag to going back and running a small farm and supplying the local food shed to getting really interested in soil health and wanting to work here at TomKat and with our partners Point Blue and understand more of the science of what was going on the ground. So there's many paths and avenues, and you figure it out along the way, and even you dip your toe occasionally in what you don't want to. Like 2 summers I worked for an ag chemical company. Saw what I learned at UC Davis was not where I wanted to spend my life, spraying stuff. So we are, have you done your introduction yet? Yeah. Okay. So Tom, I manage the day-to-day operation here at TomKat. We're a cow calf to finish our operation, which that means we run cow calves. We wean the calves off, we raise them for a year, we put another year of life into them. When they're nice and fat and ready to harvest, we harvest them, and they get sold under the label of Left Coast Grass. We manage this land organically. And organic's got a funny label, at least it has, like let's say the last decade or so, as people have massaged their way into organics, because really organics evolved with taking care of the soil, rebuilding soil, growing healthy food, and it's become a thing in some circles of what's the minimal I can do and how can I actually be extractive. It's gone from almost conventional ag mindset into organic. Our attitude is, how do we build this land without using not so much inputs, because there's okay to use inputs like compost or seed, etc., right? But it's not using synthetic inputs, chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. Okay, so we're really trying to work in balance. We operate from a holistic mindset, which is you manage for what you want, not for what you don't want. So somebody here mentioned about, had a question about weeds. Weeds are just a plant. That's not a plant that's a problem. It's a plant that either you don't have animals to eat, or it's indicating you're not managing your land right, or it's indicating to you something. And if you just turn around and look at that yellow flower behind you, that's a Cape weed. If the San Mateo County Weed Board, or whatever they're called, could get their hands on it, they'd be out here with Roundup and nuking it. They have a place in San Mateo, they've been doing it, or Half Moon Bay, they've been doing it for like 2 decades. Stuff just keeps coming back. Okay? We keep in check with our grazing. And if we actually had sheep, they will wipe it out in a couple of years because they love it. They can't stand the grazing. So if you have a plant that you don't like, find something that likes it, and it will disappear over time. But a lot of times, like thistles, I have no problem with thistles because a lot of people do, but they're breaking up soil. They're indicating us issues. So it's this mindset as we approach, how we approach our land. The other one was somebody mentioned about raptors. The way we manage our raptors is just create habitat for them. Right? If you got a lot of food for them, they will hang around. What we actually worry about, because part of our mission is about the grasslands, and that includes grassland birds. If there's too many coastal firs, which have a lot of these trees here are coastal firs that have encroached since the time of Europeans showing up and decreasing the burns because the coastal firs can't handle the burns, then these trees increase into the grasslands for the grassland birds, which basically nest on the grasslands. Then you provide raptor perches. Well, that's not a good thing if you're trying to grow a grassland population of birds. So you have to kind of think of that balance. And so now our question is, hey, how many of these firs do we actually have to remove? Whenever a lot of people want to plant trees, well, plant the trees where they belong. But if you want a area for grassland birds, so you manage for what you want. Again, we're just trying to create an environment where these things can express themselves, not in population, but vigorously. And we do the same thing with the plants. After, I guess it was after you came, no, just about the time you came, they put together the first grazing plan, which is looking across the landscape and understanding your plant growth, matching your animals. People were asking about animals. It was matching the animals to the natural growth of the plant community, whatever that plant community is. And it doesn't matter if you were managing elephants or you were managing, like we do, cows or what have you, right? Once they put that grazing plan together and changed from what we call set stock, which is a traditional way of just putting livestock on the land, letting them eat everything until it's done, and then moving them to the next field. That grazing plan had them moving the cattle appropriately, so they gave a long rest. They didn't take all the grass, they didn't take all the forage. They left sufficient to feed the soil, and they moved on. And what that did was it actually allowed the plants to recover. In a very short number of years, we saw a huge jump in our perennial native grasses. A scale of 75 pastures. The first year, they could only find native perennial grass in native. 2 years later, they could find it 55.
Wow.
That's no planting, no seeding, no herbicide, no mowing, nothing. Just move the cows. A lot of times, and trust me, I'm not, as much as I love cows aren't the magic wand of everything. They cause issues. They mainly cause issues when we humans do it, okay? Because if we took the barbed wire fences down, got rid of the property lines, cows don't overgraze, they'll just drift. If there's not food here, they won't stay here. So the problem is we keep animals too long. In the wild, I mean, we don't have any wild really left in America, but if you look at places like Africa, we still have migrating herds. They don't overgraze. It doesn't matter if they turn into a dust bowl in the summertime or a mud hole in the rainy season. They don't come back till it's ready again. They're in balance. As we humans have a hard time getting our head around that. We are linear thinkers, and we're dealing with circles, right? We're dealing with these cycles of water, carbon, mineral, energy, and the community dynamics of all of us. So we have a hard time going this way because we always want to go this way. And so when you're going across this landscape, if sometimes the way we're talking about things seems like we're not being specific, it's because you have to be very careful. People always ask us for recipes. What should I plant here? What should I do there? First thing, it depends on your context. So, to give you an idea, this year, we're at, I think, 42 inches of rain. Last year, we ended at 52 inches of rain. Our average is supposedly, according to the government, 29 inches of rain. In my first 6 years, we went from 14 inches to 38, and last year we got 52. So that context is dramatically what we can do this year or a month ago. Right now it looks beautiful. But a month ago, things were wet and sloppy. There was water leaking out of every corner around here, okay? Where you could put the cows, where you could drive was very different than 3 years ago when we got 14 inches of rain. It was already getting dust flying, and plants were already putting out their seed heads. So we can't give anybody a recipe, and when you're doing things, if people are giving you recipes, be careful. Make sure they're reading your context. There's no one size fits all. And it's a real, it's a limitation we humans have that we just want we want that answer. And the answer is not important. What's important is the questions. Go out and read the land, read the community, read the animals. Give you a perfect example. When I got here at TomKat, we ran nothing but cows. And after a while, we kind of look around and go, we've got a lot of brush. And cows only eat so much brush. Well, what eats brush? What do we need to manage? Because we're not managing this land in balance. Oh, goats do. So the first bunch of goats we brought in didn't eat the brush. Oh, do goats not eat brush? No, we did the wrong timing. We contracted again, brought in some goats in 21. That hill up there above that little shed, you used to not be able to walk up there. Solid patch of poison oak, briars, and brush. 4 days, 850 goats. Made it look like this concrete. Made it look like the road. I kid you not. There wasn't a blend. Huh?
850 goats?
Yes. Wow. You need, look, we forget how big natural herds were. Yeah, and it's not only what they're doing, but it's all that energy they bring. And the lady that was running them, she's been doing it, Lon's been doing it like, what, 30-something years or something. She had this thing about that, just the heat of their body, where they would bed down, all the urine would put liquid into the soil, the heat of their body would cause the seeds to germinate. Wow. Well, it's when you start thinking about when you have that many animals. We would have stayed longer, but then the mountain lion showed up and decided to have a dinner one night. Well, so then we started to move because she didn't run guard dogs. And why didn't she run guard dogs to protect her animals? Because we humans. She works a lot around town, and people do stupid things. They tease guard dogs. Guard dogs are guarding the goats. They bite the human. Then you got lawyers involved. Oops, is it the guard dog's fault? Is it the goat's fault? Is it the lion's fault? No, it's us humans. We need to understand our place in this circle. Okay? I'll get you right there. I just want to finish. So, just to paint you a picture, when we left there after 4 days, that place looked like this road. 80 days later, we were back with cows having to graze the grass in the bottom because it was 3 feet high. It just exploded. And every year since, we are getting more and more of these perennial grasses. We never planted anything, and when you looked up there, you saw these little tiny perennial grasses as soon as we were done grazing. Because what had we done? We had removed this overstory canopy of poison oak, briars, and decadent material. We were actually letting the energy cycle start again. And so it's a little story. It's easy to see here of what we're trying to do across the whole property. You had a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like a problem is the fact that everything is like private ownership and things like, for instance, what was the acreage of this? Like
it's 1,800 acres.
1,800. So if you were gonna like naturally graze animals on 1,800 acres, it doesn't seem that much of space. So you have to bring other things in, like goats and things, like because you can't just have your own animal. You have to contract somebody else, and then it gets, like you said, like lawyers involved in things when things happen, because it's not yours.
Well, didn't you say you guys are about to get goats though?
We have. So when I came here, I wanted to bring goats, but it was going through the process with the organization. Now we have our own goat herd,
Oh, okay.
and they're helping us manage that, and we're just growing. We're only at about 140 head, and our target is somewhere between 500 to 1,000 head. You know, I'm going to guess it's going to take something like that for a decade. We're not, again, coyote brush is a native bush. We don't want to get rid of it, okay? We want to get it in balance. There's some, and we still don't understand how it got totally out of balance, whether it's low calcium soils, whether it's overgrazing, or it's historical farming, but we're trying to get in balance. Your question about small acreage, yeah, it is a problem. If these were bigger ranches, if this was a 10,000 acre ranch, we could run bigger herds. We could actually have more impact across the land. So it's, running 100 cows may seem like a lot. It's not when you're actually trying to manage land. Every time you double that number from 50 cows to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 400, etc. If you can, if you were moving 1,000 head of cattle across this land, you would have a much different and quicker impact on the land, especially this jump starting cycles.
Speaking of coyote brush, how about we get out there and identify some?
Yeah. Where do you want to go? Yeah, yeah, yeah.